Stage fright is the #1 killer of our hopes and dreams, if you ask me. If you suffer from stage fright, it could be this makes you just want to run and hide from the world, from yourself even, and after you do that, after you've avoided a certain stressful situation, something else happens that not a lot of people talk about: resentment towards yourself. People feel feelings about feeling feelings. Yes, this is actually a thing. You feel fear in a certain situation, like a stress-related situation, like public speaking, then you're angry with yourself for being afraid. Emotions of guilt and shame, even anger or resentment towards yourself. Why did you escape the situation in fear? How come you cannot count on yourself to deliver? You know you can do it, yes, but you stay silent. Let me ask you this: how many times has stage fright interrupted your path to your dream life? Or an even more important question to ask yourself: what would your life look like had it not been for this debilitating fear constantly pulling you back? If you suffer from stage fright and you want to break free of it, now this video is important for you, as I'm going to talk about taking ownership of the most important story of your life, your feelings, your emotions, your sensations, whatever it is, positive or negative is okay. You are okay. So I bet you're a smart person, knowledgeable. Doesn't matter if you've gone to good schools or not, if you're learning new things online. That means you are curious enough to want to know, to want to learn. I bet you've also invested a lot of your time and energy into your career and personal development. But here's the thing. Did you know that the smartest, most talented, most competent of people often experience what is called imposterism? The imposter syndrome, feeling fear like you're going to be found out, that you're a fraud, that if you make yourself visible, where you're just going to make it easy for them to spot you. It's just basic math. Like 10 people know you, it's easy to fool them. But 10,000 people? Man, you're like in deep shit. Before I share some advice with you about breaking free of stage fright and imposter syndrome, let me first share my story with you. My story began on a radio station a long time ago. And if you see me as a speaker there, then you're mistaken. I was an administrative assistant handling very odd jobs for over 5 years, when for real, what I wanted, what I dreamt about, was for someone to kind of spot me and ask me, would you like to go on air? And yes, someone else. Well, I was not about to raise my hand, but then someone did. Someone actually asked me if I wanted to go on air. But I blushed. I said no, and I ran away. That actually happened. It was just a simple commercial. They needed a female voice, and I was the only girl there at the time. So after a while, more like 5 years, I mustered up the courage and I asked one of the producers if I could be a content contributor for one of their shows. So I started writing and I started speaking and then producing and so on and so forth. But I never made much of a career out of it, like due to the fact I knew well how to hide and stay kind of below the radar. Now, why do we hide? Fear of failure, maybe? For me, it was the fear of being found out, a fake, a phony, a fraud, full of baloney. And it took me a long time before I understood the fact that the real critic, the one I should be most afraid of, the most vicious, most vile, most arrogant, the meanest, baddest bitch in my life, was me. My inner voice was the one that was harsh. And maybe you can relate to this. Maybe you also experience the same inner dialogue, perhaps not being fully aware of it. So after I graduated, I started working in marketing, and I was smart, worked really hard, got ahead, and all that wasn't really a problem in terms of my career progression. But the inner dialogue, however, was still very vicious. I had severe anxiety, a real fear of people, especially the ones holding certain positions of power, where, the ones I really feared, believing that they could make or break me. often I would tiptoe around them and I just didn't know how to act around them and how to talk around them and how to, have a conversation with them. But the important fact here is I was angry at myself for having this anxiety, the feelings about feelings, So my inner bitch would most likely bitch about this fact. Every time I left the room, I would whip my ego about how I failed myself yet again. So enough about me, let's go to the advice of this video. Advice that once I implemented this very technique, my world, my life, my success, all started changing. I started to aim higher, I did more, I published more, I worked more, met really cool people, don't really see anybody differently anymore. My life is, pretty much freaking awesome due to the fact that my inner bitch voice became my best friend, my greatest supporter, and also a very constructive critic. So to start breaking free of your imposterism, your stage fright, or your anxieties, controlling your inner dialogue is the way to go. And there are 2 rules that you need to apply. So the first is the tone of voice has to be respectful, also kind, compassionate, empathetic, as by choosing how you speak to you. You are choosing who you are, how you see yourself, important, worthy of respect. The second tip is to use the feedback sandwich formula, meaning you first compliment yourself on something you did well before you start giving yourself some constructive advice on what to change in the future. And also then end with a cheer. Go team, go! You are on your team, you are on your side. Who else is there? It's just you. You are your cheerleader. As a professional speaker trainer, I feel this is so vital. If you want to reach the highest possible level of empowerment, and I don't mean the woo-woo nirvana type. I mean, actually, the conscious, responsible decision-making type of empowerment with clarity and sanity and humanity attached to it. You need to kind of redesign your inner dialogues first. So mine is probably the only program of speaking skills that kind of include working with your inner voices as well. Because if you are a leader who wants to step up and speak up to inspire others, I think the first speaking skill you really need to master, and I really mean master, your own inner world, your own inner dialogues. If you want to lead in the exterior world, you must first learn how to lead your interior world. I believe too many leaders of this world lead the exterior without having learned how to master their own inner realities. And this is why they then come up and the world becomes so darn effed up. Oh, wow, this video is way too long. So let's break it into a couple of parts. So I guess I'm just gonna be moving on to part 2 about stage fright.